The Los Angeles Rams are scorching hot right now, and I'm going to explain exactly why I think they can win the Super Bowl this year. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let's get into it. So the Rams obviously play the Lions this week. We still have plenty of coverage throughout the week. Have tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time. You can check it out right on the channel page. The NFC West Roundtable I will be doing there. So check that out. That is a live show. It goes about an hour, so it'll be done by 10 p.m. Eastern time. But also we have Downtown Rams coming later in the week. We have Believe in Rams. So plenty of stuff coming down the pipeline. But this is more general. This isn't focusing on the Rams and Lions game. This is focusing on what this team has been since the bye week. And let me just be the first person to say, I like using these splits a ton, but there needs to be context included here. And what I mean by that is if you're going to use the last 8 games, you also have to understand this actually helps the Rams. If you're going to use the last 8 games as a split, right, you have to understand that the last 8 games, one of those games was against Seattle, the 17-16 game without Kyren Williams, and the other game at the end of the year is with most of their starters on the offensive side out, including their best player on the defense. So it is a little skewed against the Rams. So some of these aren't as great, but I went through and I did a lot of, research on splits and, so forth. So let's get into it because I think it's really important now. We stop saying this is the 13th team in the NFL, and this is this. No one cares. The NFL is done. There's not 32 teams. In the playoffs, there's 14. So where did the Rams rank among those 14? Well, over the last 8 games, they're number 1 in the league in wins. You know, the thing that's the most important thing of all is winning football games. Over the last 8 games, they're 7-1. They've won 7 games. Other teams that are notable, and they are just as hot, I wouldn't say as hot as the Rams, but they're up there. Bills 6-2. Cowboys 6-2, the 49ers 6-2, the Ravens 6-2. So there are some teams out there that, yes, they're playing well as well, but the Rams are number 1 in wins over the last 8 games. Another thing, they're number 1 in safeties. Kind of a weird thing to be number 1 in, but they actually have 2 safeties over the last 8 weeks. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. And yes, I'm talking about a safety when the offensive ball carrier is literally tackled in his own end zone. That's not a common thing. So the fact the Rams have 2 of them, pretty cool stuff. They're number 2 in fourth quarter scoring. That's kind of a big deal because it's the postseason and there is going to need to be fourth quarter scoring. There might need to be a comeback. Matthew Stafford, I believe, is first among all active quarterbacks in the league in fourth quarter comebacks, so that bodes well. They're also number 2 in second half scoring, so they might start off a little slow, and trust me, they have, but you saw the 14 unanswered put up against the 49ers last week with the backups. We've seen it. I mean, they do light up a little bit in that second half. They're second among playoff teams. They're number 2 among playoff teams in completion percentage allowed. This breaks a narrative I keep hearing. I keep hearing the secondary is terrible. I keep hearing how bad this secondary is. The secondary isn't terrible. You know what it is? It's actually pretty rock solid. It goes back to what I was saying about Darion Kendrick earlier in the year. Darion Kendrick, 97% of the game is really good. It's that 3% that kills you. Well, here's the thing. When you look at the Rams secondary, they're allowing the second fewest completion percentage or the lowest completion percentage in the NFL. Now that we're talking about the playoffs. So in the playoffs, why is it so low if they're giving up so many yards? Well, the fact of the matter is that those yards are basically skewed because of those big plays. And those big plays didn't start until the Ravens game with Isaiah Likely and then OBJ and then the Saints game we saw with, Chris Olave and we saw with Rashid Shaheed. And, you see it in the game against the Giants. I mean, you see the big play to Darius Slayton. And so you're like, okay, this came out of nowhere. I don't know why it came out of nowhere, but it did. So the Rams got to clean that up because if they do, this is still a really solid secondary that does not get enough credit because of those lapses in coverage over the last few weeks. It's very skewed though. If you're watching the film, it's not like they're doing that all year long. So I expect them to clean that up. And I think this defense is going to surprise some people. Again, number 2 in completion percentage allowed in the playoffs. That's impressive right there. They're also number 2 in rushing yards allowed, but that goes along. I've already made a video about that because Bobby Brown, it was so key in that 49er game and what he does plugging up the holes and everything. The Rams haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher since week 2, and that was Christian McCaffrey, who's the best running back in football. They are doing a really nice job at stifling teams' rushing attacks. And when you look at, Saquon Barkley wasn't really able to get going, and Alvin Kamara wasn't really able to get going as of late. They did a great job against the Ravens' rushing attack. That's pretty much the best in the league. They've struggled against mobile quarterbacks, but that's not the same as the running game. And they're still, it still counts in this, and they're still allowing the second fewest rushing yards in the playoffs. So that's really good. Penalty yards, they're number 2. So they basically, they're number 2 in fewest penalty yards in the playoffs. This is a disciplined team. I know people are going to say, what about Darion Kendrick? This is including all penalties. The Rams are a disciplined team. They have one of the fewest penalty rates for any offensive line in the league, and it really shows. It's why when people are like, well, why don't they call holding on the Rams? The Rams are really disciplined. They've done a really great job, whether it's Munchak there or it's Ryan Wendell. What they've done with that offensive line has been amazing. They are really starting to come into their own. And on the flip side of that, the number 2 team in the playoffs in offensive turnovers. This is a team that's not turning the ball over. And yes, the first week they're going up against one of the best teams in takeaways in the Detroit Lions. So we'll see, obviously, two, immovable forces when they, go head to head. But the Rams really aren't turning the ball over the last 8 weeks. Again, this is an 8-week split. It's the last 8 weeks of the season, but the offensive turnover second in the NFL. That's really good. Also, second in the playoffs, 2-point conversions. This might not feel like that big of a deal, but it is. The fact is that this team hasn't been afraid to go for 2. If they worry about Brett Maher making extra points, or maybe they bring in another kicker at some point, they should feel good about their 2-point conversions. They're only behind the Lions in the playoffs. Shocker. In 2-point conversions. And then they're number 2 in offensive yards, total offensive yards. This is a team that's put up a lot of yards. They've done a lot of great things on offense. They've become a balanced offense. And it's not even just the splits. They're 9th in offense total for the year in scoring. So it's really come to them. They've really come into their own. It started, it struggled a little bit early on, not having Cooper Kupp those first 4 games, losing Kyren Williams for 4 games. He ended up missing 5 because they sat him out week 18. But you see this offense with Kyren Williams on the field and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, and you're like, this is a really good offense, one of the best in all of football, and it shows over the last 8. They're number 2. Number 2 in broken tackles. A lot of that is Kyren Williams. He does a great job of breaking tackles, slipping tackles, making guys miss. But also, you got to give a lot of credit to guys like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, guys after the catch, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Higbee. So they're second in the playoffs in broken tackles. They're tied for second in the playoffs in passing touchdowns. I believe with the Dolphins, I think maybe the Cowboys, one of those teams. Anyway, they're throwing a lot of touchdowns. Matthew Stafford is really feeling it. He's very confident, and he's confident going into Detroit to start the playoff run. He's undefeated as a Rams quarterback in the playoffs. I like him to keep doing that. Now we go down, all the way down where the Rams are still ranked in the top 5. These are the number 3. So they're number 3 in rushing touchdowns allowed. That's really good. Again, defense has really bottled up the run. I'm really impressed with the way they've played over the last 8. They're number 3 in the playoffs in pressures per drop back allowed. So what this means is that the offensive line is protecting Matthew Stafford. It's really that simple. Number 3 in the playoffs in doing so. And that's a huge thing because when you look at the Lions, they are going to send the house. They're one of the top blitzing teams in the playoffs. They have the second most pressures for a player in the league in Aiden Hutchinson. He's behind only Micah Parsons. So That is a huge one there. I think the offensive line is really starting to come into their own, but they will need a game plan for guys like Micah Parsons if they play him, guys like Nick Bosa, guys like Aiden Hutchinson. So, we'll see there. They're number 3 in sacks allowed. I said it before, I'll say it again. I've been really impressed with the Rams offensive line since the bye, and I feel like Stafford has done a better job at navigating through the pocket and not picking up too many sacks. He's done a lot. The offensive line's done a lot, and it's showing. They're number 3 there. They're also number 3 in fourth down conversions allowed. This is really good because this means that teams are going for it on fourth down. The Rams are putting them in that position, and they're giving up the third fewest fourth downs among the playoff teams. So that's really good in that 8-game span. They're number 3 in average yards per punt. I'm throwing it all out there. I want to, all these stats that they're in the top 5, I'm going to talk about. Average yards per punt's a big deal. The Rams don't punt a ton, but when they do, Ethan Evans drills it. There needs to be better consistency on the special teams unit. They need to play better coverage. We saw it a little bit against the 49ers. They got to step up and be consistent because their DVOA is, I believe, the 6th worst all time, since the DVOA era started. So they got to be better there, but there you have it. Average yards per punt. They are number 3 in the playoffs. They're also number 3 in the playoffs in fourth down conversion rate. So not only are they really good on fourth down as a defense, they're really good on fourth down as an offense. And I think we've started to see Sean McVay, be a little bit more aggressive, which I think we all can attest to, and we could all, root for and like. So that's been huge. And I think when this offense gets stopped, it's almost kind of fluky. And you feel like, if it goes up to 4th and 4 or 4th and 5, go for it. I mean, this team, as long as you're in a decent spot, this team has done a really nice job of just being a balanced offense. They're really hard to stop on the ground. Kyren Williams making guys miss. And really the key is health, because at any given point, anyone can go down with injury. But if we're talking about a healthy Rams team throughout the playoffs, I don't know how anybody is going to beat them if they continue to do what they do on offense. And this defense is able to shore up those big plays over the top. And of course, the special teams unit. So that's what I'll say there. But then we have number 3 in the playoffs in offensive time of possession. So again, in case you've gotten to this point and you forgot, this is the playoffs. These are 14 teams. So this is the best of the best, and they are 3rd in time of possession. I think it speaks volumes to how Sean McVay has been calling games lately, doing a much better job of balancing the run and the pass, and it's really shown. And so because of that, they're number 3 over the last 8 games. They're also number 3 in yards after the catch, and that shouldn't be a shock to anybody. Puka Nacua does it as well as anybody in the league. So does Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, hell, even Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, you name it. They've done a really nice job, and so they are number 3 in the playoffs over the last 8. Now we go down to number 4. So they're number 4 in third quarter scoring allowed, which is good. They're number 4 in rushing yards. This is one of those ones that is somewhat skewed because keep in mind that the last 8 keeps the Seahawks game on the ledger. So that had no Kyren Williams in it. And it keeps the Week 18 game with no Kyren Williams, and they kind of abandoned the run in that one with Ronnie Rivers. So that could have easily been number 2, number 1, but it's number 4 because of those 2 games being counted in. Still, number 4 is really good in the playoffs regardless, and you just should know that they're better than the number 4 rating. They're also number 4 in passer rating, which again is skewed because it keeps the Seahawks game on there, the 17-16 game, and it keeps the Week 18 game with Carson Wentz playing instead of Matthew Stafford. That's not going to be the playoff offense, so a little skewed there. Again, helps the Rams out. Hurts their case, but helps their case at the same time. Number 4 in scoring offense. Again, backups playing in Week 18. And then, of course, not the full offense is available in the game against Seattle. So still skewed, but still really good to be number 4. Number 4 in yards per play. Number 4 in rushing yards before contact. That probably was number 1 until this week. Number 4 in point differential. That's a big one there. And then number 5, you have number 5 in first downs allowed. They've done a really nice job. I don't think they get enough credit. They're one of the best teams in the league, regardless of the playoffs. They're one of the best teams in the league in first down, stopping them from getting first downs. They're number 5 in third down conversions allowed. I know it seems like they give up a lot of third downs, but in the grand scheme of things, they're pretty solid across the board. They're number 5 in second quarter scoring. They're number 5 in third quarter scoring. Again, skewed because of that game against Seattle and skewed because of the Week 18 game. Number 5 in penalties. So this is a team that, not only are they, causing, they're not getting penalties called on them because they've been disciplined. They're forcing more penalties. And then number 5 in, penalty yards. They're second in penalty yards, which is the lowest. That's good. And then they're 5 in penalties. So again, really disciplined there. And then number 5 in total touchdowns, which again is somewhat skewed. So this Rams team is scorching hot right now. Okay. They've won 7 of the last 8. They went 5-1 in one of the best divisions in football that had 3 teams above 500. They played the toughest schedule among any of these playoff teams. They have a better strength of victory than some of the teams that are ahead of them in the seeding. This is a team that it's the unlikely hero. It's the unlikely team. It's the team you don't want to say is going to win it all because you don't want to jinx it, which I told you I don't believe in jinxing. If they lose to the Lions and they lost to the Lions, it had nothing to do with me. I can't influence the outcome over in Detroit. I live in upstate New York. Again, it goes back to that. But I think this team is going to win the Super Bowl if they get past the 49ers, because I really think it comes down to the Rams and 49ers. I'm kind of feeling like the NFC is going to take it home this year. Obviously, the AFC won last year, and then the NFC won the year prior. It's not that there's a pattern there. It's just I kind of see the NFC. I think the NFC got a lot better as the season went on. I think the league is just struggling from the fact that there's just not a ton of great teams. And so because there's not these teams separating everybody, that's why I really feel like the Rams have a shot. There's not a 15-1 Steelers team. There's not a 14-2 Rams team or a 13-3 Rams team. There's not the 12-5 Rams with the 12-5 or 13-4 Bucks. There's none of those teams. I mean, really, the 49ers are really good and they lost 5 games and they got the 1 seed. Find me another season where the 5-loss team got the 1 seed. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but it doesn't happen very often. And then the rare occurrence over in the AFC where, we keep talking about how great the AFC is, and that might be the case, but why is it that the AFC Week 18, the Bills 2 weeks ago weren't in the playoffs? If you looked at, if the season ended, the Bills weren't in the playoffs, and now they're the number 2 seed after 1 game, essentially going from 8-2, and the Dolphins falling to the 6th seed. It just kind of goes to show you that everybody is really in play. It's why so many teams were still in it going into Week 17, and I feel like this really kind of just sets the table for the Rams. You can say they're not supposed to be here. You can say they're, everything else is gravy at this point. You can say that this team is, playing with house money. I disagree. I don't think they're in a league. I don't think they're in a position where everyone's above them. I think they've considerably closed the gap. I think the trends show, and I think the resume shows, because not only are these stats impressive, not only are being top 5 in all these categories impressive going into the playoffs, but it's against teams like the Ravens, the Browns, the 49ers, the Giants, who were a tough team at the end of the year, the Cardinals, who were a tough team at the end of the year, okay? The Saints, who were one of the hottest teams. I can't even believe they didn't make the playoffs. They're one of the hottest teams. They were top 5 in almost every metric that I was looking at. They were so hot, and they did not make it. The Rams ruined it for them, okay? The only team that you could really say was just a joke, and of course, Seattle, of course, they went 9-8. The only team that you could say was really like a joke, Washington. They lost 8 straight. So if you want to say Washington was a bad game for the Rams, yeah, okay, they played a bad team. But for the most part, this resume right here is impressive. like destroying the Browns. That Browns team, everyone's saying they could be the team of destiny with Joe Flacco now. Like, that's what I'm talking about. And people laughed at the idea like, oh, the Rams are getting bodied by Joe Flacco. Oh, the Rams are getting bodied by the Giants and Tyrod Taylor. That was a down game 3,000 miles away from home on New Year's Eve in the freezing cold. And you want to tell me that, the Rams, that was a bad win, winning by one, barely winning? They scored 4 touchdowns and you thought that was a down game. So if that's a down game, what's going to happen if the Rams are playing their best football? And now you get Matthew Stafford and Kyren Williams and Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua in some facet, Ernest Jones and Aaron Donald to rest. And now they get to go in, and there's a lot on the line at Ford Field, but there's a lot on the line in the playoffs in general. I mean, the Rams, they might be ahead of schedule. It certainly feels that way, but there's no reason why they can't win the Super Bowl. And it's why I really kind of believe they're going to. I think this team is going back. Kind of similar to how like everyone was surprised the Chiefs were, they didn't make it in 2021 and the Bengals made it. And I know the Chiefs made the playoffs, a little bit different than the Rams, but the Chiefs ended up with 2 Super Bowls in that current dynasty run. The Rams can make it too. And no one wants to talk about the Rams. I mean, there are people that do, but this team, as soon as they hit 5-12 last year, despite the fact I've said this so many times, they were in every single game going in the fourth quarter, despite the fact that, that team was ravaged with injury. All anybody wanted to talk about is how they set the record for worst, Super Bowl winning team, defending Super Bowl winning team. So look, you got your laughs last year. But you better hope to God, if you're, one of those Rams haters or you're somebody that bet against them, you better hope to God that the Lions knock them off. Don't let this team get hot, because I'll tell you right now, one thing that I look for in playoff teams, Super Bowl winning teams, first off, you have to have a top 10 offense to win the Super Bowl. Most cases. Defense, you'd be surprised how many non-top 10 defenses have won the Super Bowl. You'd also be surprised how many non-number 1 seeds have won the Super Bowl. The Rams did it, by the way. The Rams have also never had the number 1 seed under Sean McVay, as funny as that sounds. Even their best year in 2018 didn't get the 1 seed. It was the Saints because they beat them head-to-head. So, again, don't count this team out. 5-1, again, in one of the best divisions in football. And then they win 7 of their last 8, so they've won more than any team in that span. All these stats, they're playing at a high level now. These young guys are growing up fast. I'm telling you, you want to play the safe card. You don't want to jinx them. You want to just say, I'm just going to take it week by week. That's totally fine. But I'm telling you, watch out. Because if this team does get through and they beat the Lions this weekend, which, by the way, I think they're going to do, obviously, they're going to be a dangerous team. And I really feel like the only team that can beat the 49ers are the Rams. And if you want to say that, well, the 49ers have our number, the 49ers this, 49ers that, not in the playoffs. Not since Sean McVay's taken over. They lost in 2021. Don't forget about that. Also, another thing is we still don't know, can Brock Purdy get it done? We didn't see it last year. We didn't get a chance to see it against the Eagles. He basically got hurt so early on, you can't even tell. But can he get it done? Healthy. Can he get it done against this Rams team? One thing I'll say, you bet on teams that are hot going into the playoffs. You bet on teams that have a resume going into the playoffs. You bet on teams that have coaching going into the playoffs. You bet on teams that have Super Bowl winning experience and playoff winning experience going into the playoffs. And you bet on the best quarterback. And there's not a better quarterback in the NFC than Matthew Stafford right now. So that's how I feel. But you guys let me know in the comment section below. Do you feel like the Rams are scorching hot? And do you think that, are you on my side? Do you think that things that they're struggling with are going to get better in the playoffs? Or do you think that's going to be their downfall? Let me know in the comment section below. But feeling really good about this team, guys. And you guys know the last time I felt really good about this team, not like good preseason about 2022. That 2022, I never at any point during that season started saying, yeah, this team is going to be the team. Like I had them winning this or going to the Super Bowl and losing to the Bills last year. before the season started. When the season continued, I didn't feel that way. This year, I really feel like when the Ravens game happened, I started to see a team that could win the Super Bowl. Like, I heard it, my father had been saying it, but I really started to believe when they went into that Ravens game, and that was their only loss in that span against arguably the best team in football. They might not have the talent other teams do and the depth, but they have the coaching and they have the experience and they have the rhythm right now, because it is important to go into the dance as hot as can be. But hey, what does Sean McVay say? You're only one Sunday away from humility. I mean, hey, got to get the job done, but big credit to Les Snead. I'll do a separate video after the season for the job he's done. Big credit to the coaching staff, Sean McVay, Mike LaFleur, Raheem Morris, guys like Wendell, who I mentioned, and Munchak, and Caniglio, and Shula. I mean, just so many different guys. Aubrey Pleasant. There are guys I'm probably missing. Henderson. So many. But they've done such a great job this year. It was not going to be easy. Anytime you take $75 million in cap, dead money into the season, it really kind of limits what you can do. It also limits what you did in the offseason. But what they were able to do, finding Kevin Dotson in trade market, finding Akella Witherspoon after a late cut by the Steelers, finding Demarcus Robinson, finding guys like Duke Shelley, and signing Carson Wentz, albeit I wish they did it sooner, signing Darrell Henderson in that time. Just being cognizant of the fact that, hey, you got to keep making these moves. You got to find bargains, and they've done that. So a lot of credit to them. They're in this position, and I'm feeling good about them. But again, you guys let me know in the comments section below. You can follow me at JK Bogan. I'm out. I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.